sharing about our experiences in other therapist centered Facebook groups is so important. I was telling Biani, one of the IG lives that we got a lot of engagement on was our IG live where we talked about our experiences in Facebook groups with other therapists when spiritual topics come up, and the responses, the judgment that we other therapists get in the comments, when we're responding back. Um, and that from our last IG, one of the kind of snippets that came out of that, was that therapists, those judgments are the master's tools, and that's how therapists use the master's tools.
The reality is not even just judgmental towards other therapists, but if you're doing this to me in a professional space where supposedly there is equity, what kind of conversations are you having to and about and with the people who you serve, right? Because no matter how much we want to pretend that there's equity in the room, most therapists function from a top-down perspective, right? Where there's a hierarchy in the space and they view themselves as the expert. And so what we know about African-centered spiritual tradition is that many of us practice in secret. And so what I always like to tell therapists is you have a client. You have a client in your chair who has spiritual practices you have not even touched on because they don't feel safe to tell you. You have a client in your chair who is having spiritual experiences that they don't feel safe to discuss with you. And so, when trauma shows up in these spaces, because we're dealing with humans, so trauma is going to occur in every single space that we're in. That's the truth. So when trauma shows up in these spaces, they're telling you that they're having a conversation with a friend or that their friend has done something to them, if they even tell you about the situation at all. But they're not telling you that it might be a spiritual teacher. They're not telling you that it might be a spiritual God sibling, right? And those dynamics are unique. Those dynamics are very, very, very different. And it can leave the individual that you say that you're serving feeling extra alone because